What's going on, everybody? C4 here today, continuing with my NFL predictions for the upcoming 2017-2018 season. And today we're going to be looking at the AFC South. I've already done the AFC North and the AFC East. If you haven't checked that out, go do that right now. But what I'm going to be doing in this video, ranking the teams 1 through 4 within the division. And we'll be talking about each team, kind of giving a outlook from a guy. I'm an Eagles fan, but I watch a lot of football, so I'm going to try to best understand your team if you're a fan of one of the 4 teams we're going to talk about. And in the AFC South, along with the AFC West, I think it's going to be the close division. I don't think the AFC South is nearly as talented as the AFC West, but it doesn't mean it's not going to make for a very intriguing division. So without further ado, jumping in at number 4, the 4th place team in the AFC South, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. I see them going 6-10 on this season, but where they differentiate from some of the other teams, I have their ceiling a little bit higher. I have their ceiling as a 9-7, and that's if Andrew Luck has an MVP candidate-like season, kind of like he did last year, just a little bit better, and can carry this team a little bit further. I think 6-10, looking at their current schedule, is kind of fair, just because I'm not a fan of their defense, really. Look at their MVP, it's going to be Andrew Luck. He's one of the best quarterbacks in football today. Now, because, you know, Aaron Rodgers is kind of old when you think about it. Aaron Rodgers is 32, 33 in that range, and there's always that talk, like, oh, you get one player when you're starting a new team, that fantasy kind of idea. And it's always been Aaron Rodgers, because Tom Brady was too old. But now when you look at things, it might have to be Andrew Luck. He's, what is he, 5, 6, 7 years younger? I mean, if you're not going for, like, you know, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott kind of range, it may be Andrew Luck nowadays. But anyway, I think he'll be their MVP once again. For bust, I'm going with Vontae Davis. Did not look good at all last year in the games I watched. I think I watched 3 Colts games. He got burned pretty bad in a lot of those games. And I don't know, maybe he's just lost his step. He's a guy that maybe has been able to get by on his athleticism for quite some time. Dating back, you know, where was he before? Miami, I think. I think he's going to have a bust of a year, and it's going to be like, you know, I think he's going to get cut coming off the next season. Looking at the sleeper, I'm going with Marlon Mack at the running back spot. Frank Gore is good, but I think this year, not because Frank Gore is going to miss games, because he's usually very, very healthy and he's still productive, but I think it's in the Colts' best interest to get Marlon Mack up to speed and get him plenty of touches. I think, you know, that's a nice little two-headed running back combination there. I think Marlon Mack, very talented running back. Great pickup. Was he in the 4th or 5th round or something like that? Great value. Looking at their first-round pick, Malik Hooker, I'm going to say he's going to finish with 3 picks. Really, really good ball-hawking safety, and usually the safeties are able to make plays on the ball in this defense. Mike Adams is no longer there, but it seemed like Mike Adams, even when he was getting up to like 30-some-5 years old, was still getting 3-4 interceptions a year. So I think maybe that role will be taken by Malik Hooker. They allow the safeties to make plays. I think he's a good fit for that defense. I also have Chuck Pagano getting fired. I already gave Marvin Lewis getting fired his walking papers from the Bengals. I think the same has happened with the Colts. It's time to, you know, you kind of redid the front office there. Now it's time to get Pagano and realize you made a big mistake letting Bruce Arians go. The strengths for the Colts obviously is their pass attack with Andrew Luck, and now you got even a guy like, I mean, Frank Gore's not even bad catching the ball, to be honest, but there's no real running back on them that's a tremendous catcher of the ball. But the wide receivers are stacked. Kamar Aiken, new addition to go with Philip Dorsett, who's a work in progress. Maybe he takes the next step. But you got T.Y. Hilton, who led the league last year in yards. You got fucking Dante Moncrief. He's pretty damn good. Jack Doyle's, you know, coming a good safety net for Andrew Luck. They're going to have a great pass attack. The weakness for me is the right side of their offensive line, their right guard and right tackle. It look pretty damn bad. And their front 7 as a whole unit. New faces coming in there. There's going to be lack of chemistry, and the talent doesn't really jump off the page at me. So that is for the Colts. But maybe Jonathan Hankins was a good addition. Going to number 3 in the AFC South are the Jacksonville Jaguars, 7-9. I think their ceiling is 8-8, which, again, I probably don't want to hear that, Jags fans. I mean, 8-8, Jags are a team. If they put it all together, they probably could get 10 wins. We'll switch that 8-8 to make it 10-6 because they have, on paper, such a good defense. And offensively, it's all like Blake Bortles can, you know, get back to 2015 Blake Bortles. They have a tremendous offense. Offensive line, pretty, but everything else, they have so many playmakers. It's just, I don't know. There's just something going on there in Jacksonville that just, when I think with the Jags, I look at their upcoming schedule, I see a lot of tough games on the road. I'm going, they're probably not going to win that one. And I came with a 7-9, which is not bad. I guess it'd be the Jags 7-9 based off of last year. It's definitely trending in the right direction. But I don't like the head coach hiring of Marone. I think that wasn't really a great decision because their offense struggled and wasn't even part of their offense, like offensive coordinator, O-line coach, something like that. I think they should have went externally, but I digress. MVP, I'm going Gator bias. I'm going Dante Fowler. I think having Calais Campbell on that line is going to eat up lots of blocks. They're going to double team Calais Campbell over Dante Fowler, who now healthy. I think he's going to be, 10, 11, 12. I think he'll have the most sacks on that team, which features obviously Yannick Ngakoue, Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson. Plenty of guys there. I think Fowler leads the team in sacks as a big year. For bust, I'm just going Marquise Lee from the standpoint of, I think a guy like Dede Westbrook, who can do a lot of the same things Marquise Lee does, will kind of eat into some of those plays that let Marquise Lee get out in space a lot. I just think his role, now you have Allen Hurns, yet obviously Allen Robinson is the number one there. I just think Marquise Lee, who looked like, emerging like a pretty damn good wide receiver there, which is not rare to see USC wide receivers do good in the NFL. I'm still a salty Eagles fan when it comes to that, but I just think Marquise Lee kind of has a mellow year, rather having a breakout year like some Jags fans are kind of leaning towards. Sleeper, I'm going Miles Jack, who's now the new starting middle linebacker if they move Paz outside, Paul Posluszny. So I think Miles Jack is going to have a really, really good season statistically. For the first-round draft pick, Leonard Fournette, here's kind of a hot take. I think he's going to have 900 yards and 7 touchdowns because I think that offensive line is not great. Looking at that offensive line, on paper, outside of Brandon Linder, there's no one that's really that good. And, I talked about this when I was bringing up the Bengals, and I was bringing up, who was I talking about? I was talking about the Browns. They know you're going to try to run the ball now with Leonard Fournette. And if that offensive line can't pick up, defense is just stacking the box, it's going to look like Todd Gurley and the Rams. I think that, a guy like Leonard Fournette, I don't know, is he going to get enough carries to get him going? I'm going to have to see a change in offensive scheme here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they're a team that likes to throw the ball. They like to give Blake Bortles 30 passing attempts a game because they have all those playmakers on the outside. But a guy like Leonard Fournette, he needs 20 touches minimum. He's the kind of guy that builds and grows as the game goes on. So I think there's a lot of uncertainties here with Fournette. I think 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. Overall, you'd say not a bad season. Obviously, doesn't live up to the hype because he's one of the most hyped running backs, goddamn, since, I don't even know, Todd Gurley maybe? Zeke Elliott? I don't know. But, looking at the Jags, their strength for me is really their defense as a whole. Their defense as a whole is really, really good. They kind of have one weak spot open at linebacker outside of Miles Jack. Telvin Smith, Paul Posluszny, and they had someone else there. Because are they running a 3-4 or a 4-3? First of all, is what I need to see. And second of all, is Calais Campbell going to be a D tackle or defensive end? I've looked everywhere. I've seen contradicting reports. To me, I thought they were running a 4-3, which means Calais Campbell's going to be a D tackle, not a D end. Anyways, their defense as a whole, as I was trying to say, now with AJ Boye, Calais Campbell, I think it's going to be really good. Weakness for me is the offensive line, and now you got a shiny weapon in Leonard Fournette, but you got a rusty old offensive line trying to protect him. I don't think it's going to be the best combination, but I definitely am going to say right now for Jags fans that may be getting upset, I think the Jags, Bortles has not a terrible year. And then next year, they're kind of like in the mold of the 76ers. Trust the process. I say next year for the Jags. Don't know if they're going to, scrap out Marone because this is still 7-9. It's kind of underwhelming from Jaguar fans' expectations, I would guess. But I think next year, the 2018-2019 season, the Jags are going to be ready to contend in the AFC South. Even though maybe they are right now. Maybe I'm kind of sleeping on them. But that's what that is. Number 2, I'm going with the Houston Texans. I have them with an 8-8 record with a ceiling of 9-7. I think it's going to be an absolute war for them to try to get back into the playoffs, even though they're going to have a healthy J.J. Watt. Just the quarterback spot. We know I'm a fan of Tom Savage from the Pink Slips, and even back at Pitt. I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson, but I think they're going to struggle at the quarterback spot. Offensive line is not great. Their MVP for me is going to be Jadeveon Clowney. I think Clowney's going to be the guy that benefits the most from J.J. Watt coming back. You saw shades of it last year. I mean, he was a second-team All-Pro. Was starting to make a bunch of plays. Now you had J.J. Watt back in the mix. I think teams are going to go back to double-teaming J.J. and letting Clowney on the outside. I think his sack numbers are going to come up, and he will be the MVP. The bust, I'm going with Kareem Jackson. I've never been impressed with him. I mean, there is something to be said about Alabama corners in the NFL, but I think Kareem Jackson's done all right. He's been able to, hold on to a job for quite some time, but now he's going to be trying to replace what they lost in A.J. Boye. I think sooner than later he's going to get replaced and bumped from my sleeper, which is Kevin Johnson. From Wake Forest. I think he's a really, really good corner. That's relative. Really, really good corner when he was coming out of college. I think giving an honest chance. I think it was somewhat productive in limited snaps last year with the Texans. I think he's ready to make that outside starter there with Jonathan Joseph. For the first round draft pick, Deshaun Watson, I see Tom Savage holding on the job, kind of like how Trevor Siemian did with the Broncos, and then near the end of the season, they'll probably work on Deshaun Watson. So I have 1,500 yards plus 100 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. I think going forward, though, I want to say this right now. I'm pulling for the Texans. People always ask me what are my 5 favorite teams, something like that. And obviously, I'm only an Eagles fan, but I enjoy watching other teams. The Texans are usually one of the teams I like to enjoy watching. They're all red. When I was first getting into football, they're all red jerseys, and Andre Johnson being one of my favorite wide receivers ever. That's what brought me to the Texans. Plus, they always sucked, and they're a new team. So I am pulling for the Texans. I am hoping, to God, they win the division over the Titans, who we're going to talk about later. But I just don't see it with their schedule and the uncertainty at quarterback. Their strengths, obviously, is our front seven. They maybe have the best front seven in the NFL. But the weakness for me is, the quarterback play, the offensive line, and the secondary is trying to recover from losing Quentin Debs and A.J. Boye. I think there's a lot. I think they're definitely not as strong as they were a year ago. And a year ago, they barely got into the playoffs. Still no further along with that quarterback. And finishing out with the first place in the NFC South are the Tennessee Titans, going 10-6. I think their floor is 8-8. That's if things go wrong and Mariota is not the same quarterback, or it takes them a little bit to get acclimated again, coming off that injury. But they are getting the playoff spot at 10-6. Look at the Titans. Their strengths for me is clearly their run game. Tremendous offensive line. You got a mobile quarterback. You got DeMarco Murray. You got Derrick Henry. You got a decent fullback there. Their weakness, I still think, is their secondary, which is not that bad. I just think as a unit as a whole, they're not going to have chemistry right away with a couple new faces in there. And, I just think the cornerback play outside of Logan Ryan, they moved on from Jason McCourty. I don't know if that was time. Reports said he was looking bad. He was slow after his injuries. But I still have to say their secondary, look at the whole, is not great. Definitely not a shit secondary. I just got to say it's not that great. Their MVP is going to be Marcus Mariota. I think he's going to have a really good season for them, especially to benefit behind everything that they got going for with the run game and the O-line. The bust is Corey Davis. I think it's relative. I think Corey Davis is going to be a relative bust in terms of his draft position. He's number 5. I think he's going to have a not bad year. I think he's going to have a year that's, you're not going to say he's a bust. You're just going to say, he's still, what can he do year 2? Because obviously I think with Eric Decker is going to take over a lot of the stuff they're going to require Corey Davis to do as a rookie. I still think they're going to have Rashard Matthews as wide receiver 1, Decker as a 2, and then kind of where John Ross falls in with the Bengals, I think Corey Davis has got the work in, especially coming from a smaller school, and he missed a lot of the whole offseason stuff with his injury. I don't think they're going to rush him really, even though they do need him on that field sooner than later. The sleeper for me is Logan Ryan on the premise that I think he'll be all right, and there's so many people right now writing him off because he's a Patriot player going someone else. You're going to figure, he's just benefit from the Bill Belichick defense. Once he goes somewhere else, he's going to get exposed, kind of like Patrick Chung did here in Philly. I think he'll be solid. Look at their first-round draft picks for Corey Davis. I have him finishing with 550 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is not amazing, but definitely not bad at all. And I am high on Corey Davis. He was my favorite wide receiver in this year's draft class. I just think, with Rashard Matthews, you got Taywan Taylor there, another rookie, Eric Decker. I think there's going to be a couple mouths to feed and a team that doesn't really throw the ball a whole lot. So his stat line's not going to be crazy. And then for Adoree Jackson, I have 1 interception and 2 touchdowns, be it a pick 6 or something on special teams. He's definitely going to be an electrifying special teamer. But there you go. The Titans are coming first in the AFC South. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with anything you've heard today. If this is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, peace out.